I hate that. I hate that because you want to do it like with these, because they're hiding their faces so that they can,
Yeah, it's going to be,
you
I mean,
know.
grabbing a mask off a person's face is going to be a use of force.
We're the Armed Attorneys. Today, we're going to talk about what do you do if you have to rip off someone's mask, what is legal harassment, and how do we transfer tax stamps in specific situations. But before we get started, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting the like button. And today's episode is sponsored by Aura.
You want to see something crazy?
Yeah.
I just Googled Edwin. His address is 1 Street.
Oh,
And the phone number.
where are you getting this?
I just Googled it.
It's scary how easy someone can Google a name and find out a person's private information, including home address, phone number, email address, and more. These sites are operated by data brokers that collect information from all over the place, including data breaches. They pack up your personal information, they sell it to anyone who wants it, including scammers and identity thieves, all without your consent. We know it's a big threat, but unfortunately, it's completely legal.
And even if these companies are required to take the information down, good luck not getting buried in the process. Or you can do what we do. Use Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura does so much more than just removing your name from Google searches, or alerts me if they find my phone number, email, social security number on the dark web. They also let me know fast if anyone tries to use my information to access my credit or bank accounts, and if the worst case scenario happens, Aura provides up to $5 million in identity theft insurance to help cover the damage.
Aura also includes a world-class VPN, password manager, real-time credit and identity theft monitoring, internet parental controls, and malware protection, all inside one app. Aura helps protect your identity, your money, and your peace of mind. Let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online. Go to aura.com/armedattorneys to try 14 days for free.
And that's enough time for Aura to start scrubbing your personal info off these data broker sites automatically. Favorite segment? Say it every time. Best segment. People tell us, they're out there saying that this is the best segment out there.
People are saying it. Everybody's out there saying it.
And so if you have questions, make sure to leave those in the comment section down below. We read your comments. We respond to a lot of them. But
we do.
We also pick a lot of them and talk about it. And so,
stop calling me fat. I'm in my 3rd trimester pregnant.
Oh, okay.
We do read your comments because we look for the questions, but stop it. Okay.
All right. So let's get started with Hassan here. And this was in response to, we covered some Antifa protesters, air quotes if you're just listening, at the Washington State University. And the question is, since when is harassment legal? And harassment is a frustrating crime.
Yes. So basically they're following this elderly couple. They're like screaming really awful things at them. Good question. Why are they allowed to do this? Isn't this harassment? Isn't harassment a crime? Let's break that down. Harassment is in fact a crime. However, this did not, under any stretch of any harassment law I've ever seen, constitute legal harassment, constitute legal stalking. It is way more than that. What is it?
Yeah, what makes harassment different than a lot of crimes, and this, not saying that what they did was legal. No. And we'll cover that in a moment. But what makes legal harassment different than, let's say, some other things, it's repeated unwanted communications of annoying, harassing, alarming, or threatening nature. And so what's really necessary in all these harassment cases is this clear line of stop communicating with me or stop immediately, and then not engaging with the person.
Right.
And I'll say for prosecutors, harassment cases are tough.
They hate them.
They hate them for sure.
Well, because they're messy and they're gross, and no one, basically, in most of the cases you get as a prosecutor, everyone's a bad actor.
Sure.
But I mean, imagine what they're actually prosecuting under harassment statutes is like, imagine like a scenario where I'm sending you a message and I'm kind of being a jerk like this, right? Or I'm calling you, or I'm, whatever, by whatever means I'm contacting you, I'm outside your work. And then you communicate to me very clearly, whether it's in writing or maybe you record a phone call, you say, stop, cease all communications with me. And then I continue to call, text, email, show up. And then I gotta do it. I mean, technically the first one after you tell me to stop is technically harassment under most statutes, but they won't prosecute that. We're really looking at a scenario where like, you have like a crazy ex who won't stop. That's generally like what they're looking at. This is gross. However, you're free. And I think there was maybe some unlawful restraint issues. There's the issue of the following. But I mean, if you're just kind of in one day, in one instance, standing around yelling awful things at someone, that's generally pretty well First Amendment protected, unfortunately.
Yeah, and this repeated unwanted communications happens after the line is drawn.
Yeah.
And so from what we showed the other day, it was unclear if there was ever a line drawn, but, we're not saying this wasn't a crime. Absolutely
Yeah,
assault.
we only know what we know.
Yeah, absolutely. Potentially, states call it different things, but terroristic threat, assault by threat, it could be all kinds of things. This unlawful restraint. I mean, it could be all kinds of crimes. Not saying a crime didn't occur, but harassment is just tough. And
It's tough.
yeah. And that brings us to our next question. This is JJ McElroy. He said, under what circumstances would pulling off a protester's mask be illegal?
All of them. I
Yeah.
hate that. I hate that because you want to do it like with these, because they're hiding their faces so that they can,
Yeah, it's going to be,
You
I mean,
know.
grabbing a mask off a person's face is going to be a use of force.
it's going to be classy assault
Yeah.
everywhere, every time.
So if you don't cause bodily injury, low level misdemeanor, offensive contact, every state's going to criminalize that.
Yeah.
And so without justification, not saying you couldn't do it in, let's say, self-defense,
Right.
but without justification, it's going to be at a minimum some kind of low level misdemeanor assault or a high level misdemeanor assault if it hurts the person.
Right. I mean, yeah. So, but, to get around that, yes, you have to be justified in self-defense. You have to have they have to basically ask you, like, please take my mask off, right? They have to consent to the contact so that it's no longer unwanted contact, right?
Go on, take my mask off. Okay.
Sure enough, you said it. Or, maybe like a defensive necessity. Can you imagine where like maybe you like really had to take someone's mask off for some reason because you're stopping another crime from
Sure.
taking place? I mean, I
Yeah.
can't think of a really good scenario off the top of my head, but like I'm just thinking what justifications might allow it. But generally speaking, as much as we might want to rip those masks off their face, it will constitute probably some level of very low misdemeanor assault at a minimum.
Yeah. And a follow-up just to kind of put a cherry on top of the harassment. We had a great question and then a follow-up from a channel member. You want to go through those?
Oh, sure. So this is at Barry Hill 6482. If I were being harassed and followed by masked idiots, and I was also being escorted by law enforcement, could I have said, I want to press charges to the police, and would the police do anything? And then we have at Skrider5493, who is a channel member, thank you, responding, you should not have to say you want to press charges. A crime is an action against the peace of the state, but then the cops might not want to mess with the paperwork.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good answer to that question. You shouldn't
Yeah.
have to say it, but
And so when you look at who is actually pressing charges, well, it's the state of Texas. It's the people versus it's always going to be the sovereign.
Yeah.
It's not typically, when you see two names on the side of the versus, it's going to be civil. And so when you say I want to press charges, a lot of folks, they're saying I will cooperate with law enforcement to
Yeah.
the fullest extent of the law so that you can go after this person. And it's my desire and wish that you actually go after them. But people saying I want to press charges, in my experience, doesn't mean a whole lot.
no, unless it's a trespass case. They
Yeah.
do need the property owner generally to say, yes, this person was not allowed to be here and I want them trespassed. And,
Right.
but generally speaking, no. And it's this sort of idea that like, oh, well, you can press charges and you can drop charges, but oh my gosh, the state says they're picking up the charges. That's because generally speaking, they were the state's charges to begin with.
Yep.
So you shouldn't have to say it. It's helpful to say it. But even if you do say it, the state still gets to make their own decision, unfortunately, in this circumstance.
Yep. All right, going to Alex Scott. So what are my obligations to identify myself and inform carrying under HB 1927? I know if I had an LTC, I'd have to inform them that I'm carrying and present my LTC if asked. This is a Texas-specific question about duty to notify.
Under constitutional carry, which we are very familiar with.
Yes, and so you'll want to know your state's duty to notify law. Some of it say upon first contact, upon request for your ID. Some states, like Texas, has a really bizarre, in those laws, maybe they say you have to let them know you're carrying a firearm.
Right.
Texas is a little bizarre. It says, if you have a license to carry, when a peace officer requests your identification, you have to also provide your license to carry. There's actually no duty to inform that you're carrying a firearm. So it's kind of a weird thing. But going to this specific question, is there a duty to notify under constitutional carry? Well, no, because the identification requirement is to produce your license to carry. So if you're carrying under permitless or constitutional carry, well, there's no production necessary? And
Yeah.
do you have to tell the cops in Texas that you're carrying? The short answer is no.
No. Now, if they are actually investigating something and they ask you a question, you should not lie. Also, this does not touch this, although it would be an interesting video. This question does not touch upon your general duties to ID under certain circumstances, such as you are driving a vehicle or you have been, you're going to be charged with a crime and they want you to ID, or I guess
We should do.
actually
All
reasonable
right, let us know
suspicion.
if you want us to do a
Yeah.
full video on that.
Yeah, because I mean it's a good topic and it's pretty complex actually. I mean I always go back to my general sort of, if you are the passenger in a car and you don't have an LTC, you don't have to tell them nothing. You can always fall back on that. But otherwise, there are lots of scenarios in which you are actually going to have to present some sort of identification. That's beside the point of this question. It just touches it, and I think it's interesting.
Yeah. All right. This is just a fun one. Ruth 8407. You can answer this one, Emily. I have a question buried away in my head over a long time. Is your white background three-dimensional, or is it just a shaded representation of a 3D construction? Inquiring minds want to know.
It is actually
Yes, three-dimensional.
3D. Yeah, it's actually 3D. It's a pretty cool little install we have back there.
And the wood, it's real wood. I mean, beautiful set. And but some people like to know what's going on behind the scenes.
We put a lot of thought and work into that, so I think it's nice that someone is inquiring. Thank
Yes.
you, Ruth.
All right, going on to this one. I'll give you this one again just because that was so short. James Webb, how can a suppressor be transferred when the person with the tax stamp has passed away?
Well, it depends on how you owned it. So you can own NFA items one of three ways: as an individual, as a corporation, or as a trust. There used to be lots and lots of reasons why you would own things as a trust as opposed to the other ways. Now at post, what was that, like 2016 when they changed the rule? 2015.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it was 2015.
It was about a decade ago. Now, owning as an individual and as a trust, it's still better to own it as a trust, but it's less better than it used to be. It used to be like you didn't have to notify your law enforcement, your Clio, right?
You added folks to the trust.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to get their fingerprints.
It used to be really, really great. Now, everybody's so sorry. We're going on a long history lesson here. So let's just talk about, you never want to own as a corporation. Why? Because if you fail to pay your franchise tax or otherwise
You don't meet
comply,
filing requirements. You get in
Right.
trouble.
if your corporation gets wound down by the state, as they do. I mean, I've voluntarily let the state wind down corporations of mine before because I did something and was like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then I was like, oh, no, I'm not, and then I just kind of let the state do away with it. So if that happens and that corporation owned NFA items, those NFA items must be relinquished to the government. No one owns them.
So
That's bad. Don't do
go
that.
down the corporation route. Now, the other two options are individual and trust. Individual just means, hey, I'm the only person who can legally possess the item. Trust, that's when the item is actually owned by this fictitious entity. And the big benefit to trusts are, well, there's no ongoing, reporting requirements, tax requirements. The thing lives in a desk drawer on a few pages of paper. So trusts still have their benefit, and their primary reason why a lot of folks utilize a trust is they want to have multiple individuals be able to legally possess the item.
Yeah.
And that's why we'd go down the trust
Yeah.
route.
And I think for the purposes of passing it on too, right? I think I can tell, he hasn't said this to me, I can tell Richard does not want me to get into the history of owning as an individual and notifying Clios and what it all used to look like. So I won't, but we can make a different video on that on another day. But yes, for the purposes of you die and you've got an NFA item, if you're an individual, that can still be transferred, right? It's going to go through your estate. Whoever, you can leave it individually to someone in your will. It might end up as part of your residuary and it goes to that person. That person then must jump through all the hoops, get a tax stamp, get everything prepared. Whereas if you just had either a co-trustee who would own it in tandem with you the whole time, but if you just had beneficiaries in your trust, there is way less work for them to have to do. It's just a little bit cleaner.
Yeah, so a little bit more detail. When the person who's either the primary trustee or a co-trustee passes, it has no impact on the trust itself, who can possess the items, anything like that. So great. Going over back to that individual one, I'll say the only thing that folks need to know about is it's a different tax transfer form. So we have the person who had the tax stamp, they pass, The item goes to the executor while the estate is being administered. And then it's actually a Form 5, and it's a tax-free transfer of the item. Once you get all your ATF approvals, then the transfer can actually take place. And so, they don't have to, pay a tax because somebody died.
But you do all the registration.
But you do have to do all the registration and all that rigmarole again, and it's a little inconvenient.
Yeah. So, yes, the answer is it depends on how you own it. We definitely recommend that you own through trust.
Yeah. Well, we hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video.
And please leave us more of your questions here. This is where we'll look for next week's episode. Until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys.